Arnie said he would be back, and here we are, lads, an arcade shooter built around one of the best films of all time in glorious pixel art form. What you realise in the opening few minutes of Terminator 2D No Fate is what a passion project it was for the devs, a love letter to an iconic film that had us all quoting "Hasta la vista, baby." The trouble is, games tied to films we love come with a free pair of those rose-tinted glasses. But if you take away the license, do you actually have a good game here? Or is it just milking your nostalgia and your wallet? Well, put the kettle on, grab a cuppa, and let's go full T1000 in today's review. Now, straight up for transparency, I was given a free review code for today's video. If you know this channel, you know that it will not change a single thing in how I go about reviewing it. But credit where it is due, the devs did chuck it to me as a freebie to give old Reggie the chance to blast through it. So what we have here then is an arcade style shooter built around the Terminator 2 film. As you can see, it is all hand drawn in glorious pixel art with the simple goal of blasting through each mission as fast as you can while chasing a high score. The kind of arcade buzz that made half of us grow up as feral and the other half addicted to anything with a leaderboard. If nostalgia was a drug, then this bit here is like that first relapse. You get around 12 missions or so to fight through, with a few hidden ones tucked away for replay value. There are even some little story choices that send you into different endings, which is more effort than most modern day shooters would even bother with. Multiple choice endings, you say, Reggie? Is it not supposed to be based on the film? Well, fear not, lads, because this is crafted with real love for the source material, and it stays true to the spirit of Terminator 2. The devs just took a bit of a creative freedom along the way, and you will spot the odd mission that is not in the film but helps set up the moment from it. For example, you might play as future John Connor tearing through machines in a fully drawn out version of that tiny flashback clip from the movie. It is a clever little way of expanding the world here without doing anything daft. Well, mostly that is, because the first mission is easily the strangest of them all. Teenager John Connor gets himself grabbed by a bunch of hillbillies, and Sarah goes full rabid Karen mode, wiping them out as if an auditioning for a true crime series. It feels a bit out of place, truth be told, but once you are past that, everything else here, it oozes Terminator 2. And you can see the level of detail on display shows that this was made by fans first and devs second. You can feel the obsession in every sprite and every background, like they spent weeks arguing over the exact colour of future war smoke. It is the little details that give everything away. In the mental hospital sequence, for example, you see Sarah grinding away doing pull-ups just like she did in the film. Even the way she moves with the baton as that same laboured limp where her leg just got done in by a needle. I love seeing that looped security screen of her losing her mind at that poor fat bloke. Proper nostalgia. And then you spot tiny little touches like the monster truck toy tipped over in Dyson's house. A tiny detail, but it lands, reminding you exactly what is at stake. A family, a kid, a life about to be shattered because one bloke unknowingly invents the apocalypse. It is the sort of thing that might go past non-fans, but for the rest of us, you're going to absolutely love digesting all the little details that they packed in here. But don't worry, the big moments are there as well. T1000 melting through cell doors, the canal chase scene recreated shot for shot, Arnie grabbing John in that iconic slow-mo moment, followed by the exact same animation as he blasts the gates open. I cannot get enough of the detail in every little scene and every little animation. It is pure poetry for anyone who grew up watching this film, even though you are probably too young for it. Honestly, why do we not get more movie tie-in games done with this much care? Most studios would churn out some mobile cash grab nonsense, but this feels like it was built by people who actually owned the original VHS. And that movie tie-in carries straight into the music. The whole soundtrack here, it's ripped from the original film and then cranked up to 11 so that you get these absolute bangers slapped on top of the chaos. I can't play much of it here because YouTube will get crabby the moment it is a single note that it recognises, so I've stripped out as much audio as I can for the sake of my sanity. But trust me, it is magical. Mission 3 was my favourite at first. It feels like you've wandered into some grim nightclub at 2 in the morning, necking cheap vodka and Red Bulls, while that main theme thumps away in the background. But then the biker bar level comes along and steals the crown. You stroll in, start naked, with your bollocks swinging about, and the original jukebox tune is there waiting for you, until you smack it and batter the bone fires up like you've just spawned in a biker fever dream. It is glorious, and I was grinning like an idiot the whole time as I was smashing up the place. The sound effects hit the mark too. Everything here, it feels like it's lifted straight from the film. Lasers sound exactly how I remember. Shotguns have that thick punch I used to love as a kid. Every detail has been considered. Every sound feels like it was checked and then checked again. Overall, it is superb, and it sells the entire vibe, making this whole thing feel like a playable love letter to the movie. And then we get to the art style, which is just as good as those same high standards set by the sound team. Animations use several frames, so everything has a smoother movement to it versus other retro style games that do feel a little bit clunky in places, and some scenes run with 4 layers shifting at once, with foreground and background sliding in their own patterns to give a real sense of depth. It looks simple at first, but the moment it all starts shifting together, you realise how much graft has gone into it. Every layer is stuffed with texture. One moment you're pushing through a worn-torn future with collapsed trucks and burning steel. The next you are sprinting across a city street-lined with shops, offices and little details you half remember from the film. It genuinely looks then like an arcade cabinet from the 90s that's been dragged into present day. And the way they've handled the license, it deserves massive respect. They stayed close to the film when it mattered, but twisted it just enough to feel fresh rather than some lazy copy-paste job. It is unique without being disrespectful, which is more than you can say for most modern tie-ins. Now, for many of you who watch this channel, you might be thinking, hold on a minute, Reggie has not said one critical thing yet. This must be on for a 10/10 score at this point. Well, buckle in, chaps, because sadly there are 2 key areas here where it stumbled big time. First up, let's talk about the good stuff in the gameplay. It plays exactly how you imagine an arcade shooter to play. There is a bit of rigidity to everything, and you have to line up your shots properly. You only have 8 firing directions after all, so if some floating robot nonsense is sitting awkwardly between them, you will need to shuffle your footing a bit, like you're trying to avoid stepping on a used condom outside a nightclub. The weapons are varied enough. As you move between characters, you can pick up upgrades, and each hero has their own little perk. John Connor gets grenades, Sarah can grab someone and use them as a hostage, and Arnie, well, he just feels like he wants to ruin everyone's day simply by existing. There is plenty to shoot in the scenery as well, which keeps things lively. Then we get to the bosses. Each one is unique and puts up a solid fight. Even the mini bosses can clatter you if you're not paying attention. I found myself learning their patterns fast so I could plant their faces in the dirt before they tried anything fancy. Now, the full run is going to take around 45 minutes to an hour to beat. That might sound short, but remember, this is built for high scores and replay value. You also get key choices halfway through which send you in different endings and with different missions, so it is meant to be played more than once. All in all then, the gameplay was super enjoyable. It scratches that old school itch without feeling dated, which is harder than most devs realise. And whilst I've got you here, if you enjoy the review, tap that like button and maybe think about joining the channel as a member. It helps me keep these reviews coming and funds my wife's handbag addiction. So let's talk then about that first real problem, and that is, well, it's just a bit too easy, and it is not really about that difficulty setting that you pick, because sure, a few extra enemies pop in and they're a little bit hard hitting, but the real issue is how brain dead they behave. You can stand there holding the trigger and boom, everything melts in front of you as they enter the screen for the first time. The first 4 missions in particular are an absolute cakewalk. I enjoyed them the first time, but on repeat runs I found myself groaning at having to slog through them again, knowing full well the enemies could not outsmart a damp flannel. The game already takes creative freedom in a few places, so why not spice up the grunt behaviour as well? give them a trick or two, give them more blocking abilities or cover mechanics, give them a longer line of sight when needed, or more tools to use on you like grenades, heck, even the ability to jump and dodge or to come up and spawn from different locations. Just make them do anything other than walk forward from the edge of the screen like they are queuing for a one-way trip to robot heaven. Half of them look like they are marching to their own vasectomy, dead behind the eyes and just begging to be put down. And in true arcade fashion, if you die on the final boss and run out of continues, well, you get slapped right back to the start. A perfectly normal mechanic for the genre, but here the balance feels off because the easy bits are so stupidly simple that they become boring, and the tricky boss spikes can wipe you again and again. So you lick your wounds and go back through the piss easy stages, which only makes the repetition sting that little bit more. Now, this criticism on its own would not be a huge deal. Who cares, right? It's a cheap arcade style shooter meant to be pick up and play, especially on handhelds. Which leads me to my biggest issue of all, the cost. Now, I've no idea what this costs on PC. The devs sent over some marketing material, but the link would not open on my rig, so no doubt I've been infected with some Skynet bollocks. But after playing the game a few times, I feel like I got most of my fill within just a few hours. If I had to put a price on it, I would say $30 tops for a brand new copy. No problem with that whatsoever. But then I checked the console versions and my jaw just about fell through the floor. $60 is what they're asking for, and the collector's edition on Switch is $120. $120, I said. Yes, at that price, I hope Arnie comes out the case and gives me a hand job. For a retro side scroller shorter than some of my dumps on the toilet, well, there is just no way for me to say that this is worth anything close to that based on its shelf life. Yes, it is a cracking little game and I've poured praise on it from the start, but when the whole thing can be finished in just a few hours on the repeat playthroughs, well, you really need to price it with that in mind, and that is why I sit firmly at that $30 mark. For comparison, you can pick up Cleared Hot, another arcade style shooter we just reviewed that feels like a modern day Desert Strike, and that is just $15 in early access. Or you can grab Dispatch, a brilliant story driven animated game that launched recently for just $30. Of course, every game has its own merits and movie licenses aren't cheap, but when I look at value, something like this sits much closer to the indie crowd than anything pretending to be a full-blown AAA product. And so there you have it, my pedigree chums. Terminator 2D No Fate is a wonderful little gem of a game. It is dripping in Terminator goodness, with every key scene recreated down to the tiniest detail. If you have even a passing love for the films, you'll be smiling at your screen for the whole playthrough, wishing more studios made movie tie-ins with this much heart. The soundtrack is mega too, a proper delight that has your eardrums bouncing to thumping remixes pulled straight from the original score. The gameplay is exactly what you expect from an arcade shooter, with some great set piece moments and memorable boss fights mixed in with a few weaker mission structures tucked between the big beats. But that price is the sticking point for me. The review goes live when the embargo lifts, so I can't say what the final pricing is as I record this, and look, if it lands at $30 or less, then without question it is an instant buy. Anything higher and you're in wait for sale territory. Either way though, it deserves to be in your library at some point, and the biggest compliment I can give is this. The moment I finished my playthrough, the first thing I did was fire up my 4K disc and watch the film again for the millionth time, because it really did make me fall in love with it all over again. And so with that, my lovelies, hasta la vista baby, Reggie